When the car crash happened, Gabriel shielded me with his body. Onlookers remarked, "That woman is so lucky." No one knew that the person who hit me was his young assistant. Gabriel saved me to gain leverage, using it to pressure me into not causing trouble for his assistant. But when I finally agreed to let them be together, he had a change of heart and begged for my forgiveness. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. In that split second when the crash happened, Gabriel instinctively threw himself over me, shielding me in his arms. The car was mangled, but I was unscathed. All the injuries were on him, his back a mess of blood, glass shards, and dirt. However, Gabriel's first words plunged me straight into hell. "I've saved you. Don't cause trouble for Juliana. Promise me." I froze on the spot, a chill spreading from my feet throughout my entire body. Gabriel was covered in blood, but he kept his gaze fixed on me, as if he wouldn't give up until he heard my promise. Only then did I belatedly recall what I had overlooked. I turned in disbelief towards the car that had hit us from the side. One glance was enough to make my blood run cold. It was Juliana Ferrar's car, Gabriel's personal assistant. Juliana was an intern at Gabriel's company, clumsy and often messing things up. She would often hide in the bathroom to cry secretly. Gabriel had complained to me several times, saying that seeing her made his aversion to stupidity flare up. But later, somehow, Juliana became Gabriel's assistant. I had my doubts at the time. However, Gabriel said that Juliana's family favored boys over girls, and it wasn't easy for the young woman to earn money for university. So he just lent a helping hand. I believed him. Or perhaps I trusted who he used to be too much. At 18, his heart and eyes were full of me. But at 28, I gradually faded from his gaze. The person Gabriel risked his life to save was probably not me, but rather a way to manipulate me, to prevent me from confronting the perpetrator. Realizing this, I suddenly felt a chill run through my body. The complex emotions I felt after being rescued were replaced by numbness. Juliana had only been Gabriel's assistant for 6 months. Yet he was willing to risk his life for her. What did the 10 years I spent with him amount to? I was stunned for a long while, a strong sense of resentment welling up inside me. "You saved me, just for her?" Gabriel avoided my gaze somewhat guiltily, but his hands still gripped mine tightly, stubbornly insisting that I agree. "Millie, I'm begging you." His humble plea sounded ice-cold and cutting to my ears. In our 10 years together, when had I ever made him lower himself like this? But now he was begging me, and it was for someone else. I swallowed countless questions and nodded silently. When Gabriel Lowe woke up, the first thing he did was call for his secretary to handle Juliana Ferrar's situation. Worried that I might change my mind, he even took out a voice recorder, which contained the exact words of my agreement to forgive. Gabriel said in a flat tone, "It's just a precaution, don't read too much into it." Was he afraid I might retract my words and harm his young assistant? When he's protecting someone, he's always so thorough and meticulous. When I was 18, he used a voice recorder to prevent my stepfather from hurting me. But I never imagined that 10 years later, this tactic would be used against me. Seeing that I didn't respond, Gabriel frowned impatiently, his voice cold. "You're almost 30, why are you bothering with a girl who hasn't even graduated yet?" She just acted on impulse, there was no other intention. Looking at Gabriel's injuries, I sneered mockingly. "If you weren't so lucky, you'd be lying in the morgue now." The car was severely deformed in the crash, how could this be just an impulse? Gabriel cut me off coldly. "I know my own body, it just looks worse than it is. Juliana knows she made a mistake. Her life is just beginning, there's no need to ruin her future." I wanted to argue that she may be young with her life ahead of her, but I'm only 5 years older than her. But as the words reached my lips, I lost the urge to speak them. It was futile to explain further to someone who didn't care about me. Strangely, I suddenly felt he was completely unfamiliar to me. I scrutinized his features, trying to find any trace of change. Unfortunately, there was none. He was still the same person on the outside. His appearance hadn't changed, but his inner self was utterly different. 10 years ago, when my mom told me to give in to my younger sister, He would firmly defend me. What does it matter if she's younger? Everyone was young once, don't use age as an excuse. But now, he coldly said, don't quibble with a young girl. Gabriel continued to plead for Juliana. Her family favors boys over girls. You know how difficult life can be for girls who aren't loved by their families. She's like you, earning her own university fees. She's had to rely on herself all the way. I think you should be able to empathize with her situation. But she's not as lucky as you. You had me by your side since you were 18, while she's always been alone. With each word he spoke, the resentment and anger in my heart grew stronger. What did these words mean? Sympathize with whoever is more pitiful? Indeed, Juliana's and my situations were somewhat similar, both living in unloving families. From a young age, my mom remarried. After having a stepfather and stepsister, she only had eyes for her new family. Each time, I could only watch like an outsider, enviously observing their happy family of 3. Until I met Gabriel later, he said I didn't need to envy them anymore. He would be my family and accompany me for life. But I never expected that years later, when he brought up these unforgettable experiences of mine, it would be for someone else's sake. How could I empathize with someone who tried to harm me? I couldn't help but sneer. No matter how difficult my life was, I never thought of harming others or stooping so low as to interfere in someone else's relationship. Gabriel's face darkened, and he warned in an icy tone. Do you realize you're being verbally abusive? Since when did you become so harsh? How many times do I have to say it? She's just my assistant, can't you stop overthinking? Every word was in defense of Juliana. He couldn't even bear to hear a few words against her. So he knew about verbal abuse. But how come he didn't realize his words were hurting me too? In the midst of their argument, the hospital room door burst open. A young girl ran in, tears streaming down her face. She positioned herself between me and Gabriel like a protective mother hen, resembling a righteous female warrior. Miss Barry, can't you see Mr. Lowe is ill? She demanded. Didn't your parents teach you how to care for the sick? Juliana knew about my relationship with Gabriel, yet she deliberately called me Miss Barry. The implication was clear. Seeing that I ignored her, she suddenly smiled and apologized in a pitying tone. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Barry. I almost forgot your parents might as well not exist, right? I froze, feeling as if I'd plunged into an icy abyss. I turned to Gabriel in disbelief, questioning him frantically. How does she know about this? Gabriel, how could you share my pain with an outsider? Only Gabriel knew about my family situation. Ever since my mother remarried, her heart belonged entirely to her new family. Before I was 8, even the slightest cold or fever would send her rushing me to the hospital in the middle of the night. But after I turned 8, all her attention was on my stepsister and stepfather. Even when my stepfather nearly assaulted me, my mother coldly told me to stop making a fuss. You liar, your stepfather is so good to you. How could he do such a thing? I think you're just stirring up trouble because you can't stand to see me happy. She even threatened to kill herself, saying if I went to the police, she'd jump off a building and tell everyone I drove her to it. Faced with that, how could I refuse? I agreed not to report it on the condition that I cut all ties with that family. After leaving, I felt much lighter. But the scars from years of living under someone else's roof never fully healed. Gabriel knew about my family history. He knew how painful that trauma was for me. He would carefully avoid mentioning my family around me, treading lightly on the topic. I never imagined he would cruelly rip open my wounds to please his little mistress. Bitter emotions flooded over me, nearly drowning me. In an instant, my eyes welled up with tears. I thought him saving Juliana instead of me was the cruelest thing. But this was even worse. Gabriel, how could you be so heartless? Gabriel's face flickered with barely perceptible panic. He instinctively moved to embrace me, but I avoided him. His hand hovered awkwardly in the air for a few seconds before dropping casually. I'm sorry, I was just trying to comfort Juliana back then. I didn't mean anything by it. I closed my eyes, my lips trembling for a long moment before I managed to utter a few words. Let's just end this. Gabriel's eyes suddenly narrowed. What are you saying? Seeing Gabriel's gaze fixed on me, Juliana grew upset. She deliberately lowered her head pitifully, crying and explaining desperately. "I'm so sorry, Miss Barry, I didn't realize this would hurt you so deeply. I thought you were like me, that you'd moved past the shadows of your family. Mr. Lowe was trying to use you as an example for me, to help me overcome my struggles. He wasn't trying to reopen your wounds." I let out a derisive laugh. She really thought she could play the child, resorting to tears when her schemes failed. She mentioned family trauma herself, showing she understood these were old scars that would never truly heal. Yet she deliberately used this to provoke me, flaunting Gabriel's special treatment and favoritism towards her. Juliana bit her lip pitifully and persisted, even trying to grab my hand. "Miss Barry, what can I do for you to forgive me?" she sobbed. As she said this, I caught a glimpse of her tear-filled eyes flashing a triumphant smile at me, her face revealing a look of successful calculation. She stumbled as if pushed, falling heavily to the ground. "Miss Barry, it's all my fault. I upset you with my thoughtless words. Can you please forgive me now?" Juliana's eyes were red-rimmed, the picture of a wronged innocent. Her voice trembled with barely suppressed sobs. Gabriel's face turned icy with anger. "Enough. So what if she mentioned your past? Millie, do you have to be so aggressive? Look at yourself, you're acting like some shrew." Juliana's already apologized. "What more do you want?" He actually believed such a clumsy attempt at framing me. I was surprised, but it also made sense. My mother was the same way. No matter how clumsily my stepsister tried to set me up, she always believed her. I suddenly realized Gabriel was just like my mother. They had both abandoned me and chosen someone else. I looked at him calmly for a long while and suddenly felt at peace. He wasn't the man I loved. The man I loved would never do something to hurt me like this. That very evening, I received a friend request from Juliana. The note attached was quite suggestive, Mr. Lowe's assistant. As soon as I accepted, she eagerly sent over a picture. Gabriel was wearing a hospital gown, smiling with an adoring expression. In an inconspicuous corner, two hands, one large and one small, were intertwined intimately. "Miss Barry, have you seen your trending topic today? Everyone's praising how affectionate you and Mr. Lowe are. They envy your good fortune." The video captured the moment of the car accident, showing Gabriel unhesitatingly shielding me with his body. The comments were all marveling at my luck. Goodness, how much he must love his wife. This woman is truly fortunate. If it weren't for her husband's selfless protection, she might not even be alive now. I replied, "So, what are you trying to say?" From the photos she sent initially, her intentions were clearly not friendly. Sure enough, it didn't take long for her to reveal her true motives. Those netizens are so stupid. "Mr. Lowe saved you for my sake. Miss Barry, you're quite pitiful. Together for 10 years, and you still can't hold on to a man. At your age, you can barely have children anymore. If you're sensible, you'll leave on your own. Don't you know? Mr. Lowe has wanted a son for years. If you won't give him one, plenty of others would love to. My decision not to have children after marriage was made right after we wed." Gabriel said he didn't want anyone else competing for his wife's attention. And he also didn't want me to gradually become trapped in family life after having a child. Many women, after becoming mothers, find their personal space gradually compressed, with everything revolving around the child. Even with a nanny, they'd still be constantly worried. I was afraid of becoming like that. So Gabriel and I agreed not to have children for the time being. But gradually, I sensed Gabriel's thoughts changing. As we grew older, seeing those around us with children of their own, Gabriel's desire for a child grew stronger. Once, when he was drunk, he caressed my face with a longing expression, saying he wanted a daughter who looked just like me. At that moment, I was moved too. I also wanted to see a son who looked just like him. So, I secretly started preparing for pregnancy, taking care of my health. But before a child could come, the accident happened. Thinking of this now, I can't help but feel relieved. It's fortunate we didn't have a child. Born into an unhappy family, a child would have a harder life than their peers. While other children only need to think about eating, drinking, and playing carefree, ours would have to worry about whether Mummy is happy. I've experienced this misfortune and pain myself, and I would never let my child go through the same. Gabriel doesn't love me anymore, let alone a child I might bear. Parental love, especially a father's love, has never been unconditional. Especially paternal love, it's simpler whether it exists or not. I stared at my phone screen with a blank expression. Seeing that I wasn't arguing back, Juliana's tone became increasingly arrogant. "You old hag, you're not worthy of Mr. Lowe." I smiled and replied calmly. "If he likes you so much, why hasn't he divorced me yet? What's the matter, is having an affair more exciting?" These words immediately provoked Juliana, her language filled with obsession and madness. "Just you wait, Mr. Lowe will divorce you soon. He was willing to risk his life to save me, he'll definitely dump you and be with me." I smiled as I put down my phone. Those whom the gods would destroy, they first make mad. I hope she won't disappoint me. After provoking Juliana, I began collecting evidence of the car accident. The lawyer hired by Gabriel defined this accident as an unintentional incident. Juliana had just gotten her driver's license and panicked under pressure, confusing the accelerator with the brake. But I knew she did it on purpose. She wanted to kill me. The passenger seat was severely deformed from the impact. If Gabriel hadn't shielded me, I would likely have died on the spot. Yet even so, Gabriel brushed it off as a moment of impulse. Evidently, compared to Juliana's bright future prospects, my near-death experience was making a mountain out of a molehill. Gabriel favored her more. Both my mother and Gabriel had changed from doting on me to favoring others. Family love can change, and so can romantic love. But it doesn't matter, I love myself. Since Gabriel doesn't want to protect my rights, I'll do it myself. I'll find evidence that Juliana deliberately crashed into me. Juliana deliberately chose a blind spot for the CCTV cameras. And Gabriel had promptly removed the dashcam from the car. Fortunately, there are still many kind-hearted people in this world. Thanks to Gabriel's heroic act of protection earlier, the video touched countless netizens and trended on Twitter. A few helpful Twitter users reached out to me, saying they could provide surveillance footage. The CCTV footage clearly showed that Juliana had been waiting by the roadside for some time. She deliberately waited for Gabriel's car to appear before accelerating, and stomping on the gas pedal, heading straight for the passenger side. That's where I was sitting. It was obvious that she had planned this for a long time. I transferred £1,000 as a token of appreciation, and to alleviate any concerns the Twitter user might have. I specifically noted it as a voluntary gift. After accepting, the kind Twitter user sent me a screenshot. It showed a post that read "Thanks to the boss for the bonus," with a picture of Juliana's car. You might want to keep an eye on this account. Actually, some netizens had dug this up before, but it all went quiet afterwards. It seems Gabriel had paid to suppress the trend. I clicked on Juliana's account. The account name still had the same flavor, Boss's Little Assistant. The post about getting a new car, probably out of fear of being exposed by more netizens, had already been deleted by Juliana in her nervousness. As for the other content, rather than recording work insights and feelings, it seemed more like flirtatious banter between her and Gabriel. Mr. Lowe actually called me stupid. I am angry. Even making me breakfast by hand won't work, it's the kind that can't be appeased. The lunchbox in the picture looked familiar, I had chosen it myself. As for the breakfast inside, it was messy poached eggs and sandwiches, looking as if the cook was quite clumsy. I suddenly remembered that one day, the housekeeper had mysteriously teased me. "Ma'am, Mr. Lowe was busy in the kitchen early in the morning. He must be preparing breakfast for you by hand." I searched the kitchen for a long time, but in the end, I only found a dozen burnt poached eggs in the bin. I thought Gabriel felt his cooking skills were too poor, and was too embarrassed to serve it to me, so he gave up. I pretended not to have seen anything, but I was touched. That evening, when he came home, I specially made several dishes he liked. Only now do I realize that it was all just my wishful thinking. Gabriel hadn't given up, he had given the successful breakfast to someone else. Gabriel's first time making breakfast was to appease his little assistant. He even practiced more than a dozen times to ensure the poached eggs looked good. I stared numbly at my phone, but my chest was pierced with waves of pain, making it completely impossible to breathe. I thought about when Gabriel first said he wanted to cook for me, and because he was inexperienced, his hands were splattered with oil. I applied burn ointment to his hands with concern, saying I never wanted him to enter the kitchen again. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. If he wasn't good at cooking, I could do it instead. But I never imagined that my concern would end up benefiting someone else, turning into him making breakfast for another woman. My heart ached with a dull, throbbing pain. But Juliana's Twitter feed kept updating. From making breakfast to taking her to places where we used to date, and even personally selecting a beautiful ragdoll cat for her. Gabriel was allergic to animal fur, so I had given up on the idea of having a cat, completely abandoning my years-long desire to own one. He felt he had disappointed me, so he specially gifted me a lifelike ragdoll cat plush on my birthday. He personally designed its appearance, ensuring that everything from the fur to the eye color matched my preferences. I was deeply touched at the time. But now, seeing photos of him carefully selecting a cat at the pet shop, I suddenly felt like my previous gratitude was a joke. Gabriel was allergic to cat fur, yet he personally went to a pet shop to choose a kitten as a birthday surprise for Juliana. So, it seems allergies can be overcome when it comes to pleasing a lover? I couldn't bear to look anymore. Each of Juliana's sweet posts seemed to mock me invisibly. But just as I was about to log off, I saw her latest update. One little assistant evolving into two little assistants. I was stunned, taking a long moment to understand what it meant. 2. She's pregnant. Suddenly, a wave of nausea washed over me, and I felt sick like never before. From 18 to 28, we were together for 10 years. Yet it couldn't compare to even half a year with someone else. I suppressed the nausea rising in my throat and reopened Juliana's Twitter profile. I saved every single word and sentence. After preserving all the evidence, I deliberately left a comment on Juliana's latest tweet. It must be a little homewrecker, right? A homewrecker's child will have a homewrecker's fate. As expected, it didn't take long for Juliana to lose her composure. She came charging at me, ready for a confrontation. You're truly wicked, not even sparing an unborn child, she spat. No wonder even your own mother didn't want you. I laughed sarcastically. The wicked one isn't me, but you, the mother who's giving him a shameful heritage. Juliana glared at me fiercely, then suddenly her expression changed. She eyed me suspiciously. You're not trying to record this, are you? Deliberately trying to make me say something incriminating? I opened my handbag to prove my innocence. You're overthinking. Juliana scrutinized my outfit carefully before finally relaxing and revealing her true colors, proudly flaunting her victory. So what? Gabriel loves me now, and he'll be the father of my child. I chuckled lightly. Well, congratulations then. Your child gets to be the illegitimate one. Juliana's expression instantly twisted. She looked like she wanted to run me over with her car. How could she accept her child being called illegitimate? This is Gabriel's only child. It won't be illegitimate, she insisted. I nodded. That may be so, but as long as I don't divorce him, the child will still be illegitimate. Juliana shouted angrily. Gabriel doesn't even love you anymore. He'll divorce you sooner or later. I deliberately provoked her. I'll be waiting for that, then. As Juliana stormed off with a gloomy face, I slowly retrieved the recording devices from the potted plant and tissue box. That evening, I went to the hospital to see Gabriel. He looked nothing like the sickly man he had been before. Even lying in the hospital bed, one could see the joy in his face. Good news lifts the spirits. And it seemed the arrival of this new assistant had made Gabriel very happy. When he saw me, Gabriel's joy dimmed a bit. Why are you here? He asked. I let out a cold laugh. How could I, as a wife, not come to care for my husband when he's in hospital? Gabriel's attention was focused on typing on his phone, speaking to me absent-mindedly as if I were a stranger. There are nurses. I don't need you to look after me. I watched as he comforted someone else on the screen, his eyes gradually softening. I closed my eyes briefly, hiding the bitterness in my heart. 10 years of feelings aren't easily forgotten. Even though I knew I no longer loved this man, seeing that familiar face show such affection towards someone else still caused a piercing pain in my chest. It was like an infected wound. Only by cutting out the old injury could it heal, but the process was bloody and messy. Let's get a divorce, I said. I have evidence that Juliana deliberately caused the accident. Gabriel's eyes suddenly turned cold. I don't agree, he said. Millie, I've never thought about divorcing you. Don't worry, Juliana is just my assistant, and that's all she'll ever be. The position of my wife will always be yours. I suddenly felt intensely nauseated. The man I once loved had become so repulsive. It seemed even harder to accept than his infidelity. The person who once vowed true love was now trampling on hearts without care. Why had it come to this? Was it because he now had money and power? So feelings had become mere playthings. His feelings for Juliana, when all was said and done, weren't much. It was just a pursuit of youth and excitement. As for me, the sunk cost of our 10-year relationship was too high to let go. Yet possessing it felt stale. I looked at him and said, enunciating each word. Since you don't agree, I'll be going to see a solicitor today. Gabriel said impatiently. I've already said I won't be with Juliana. What more do you want? His face showed not only impatience but also deep confusion and incomprehension. As if he truly didn't understand why I insisted on divorce. I took a deep breath, suddenly losing the will to argue. If we don't divorce, then your child will have a mother with a criminal record. Pregnant women might not go to prison. But that doesn't mean they won't have a record. Gabriel coldly questioned. Do you have to take things to such extremes? Millie, when did you become so cold-blooded? How can you be so calculating about an unborn child? I smiled indifferently, deliberately provoking him. Yes, I am cold-blooded. Is this the first time you've realized? Have you forgotten that I don't even care about my own mother, let alone this bastard? Gabriel looked at me with disappointment. You've changed, he said. He coldly took the divorce papers, signing them with a flourish as if to deliberately insult me. Then threw them on the floor, turning to look out the window without sparing me another glance. Get out, he spat. I slowly crouched down, fighting the pain to pick up the agreement from the floor. This scene seemed to overlap with a moment 10 years ago, when I signed the papers cutting ties with my mother. Just like then, a flimsy piece of paper severed our relationship. On the day I received my divorce papers, Juliana was the first to break the news on Twitter. Last day to commemorate, tomorrow I'll officially become Mrs. Lowe. So excited! Divorcing today and marrying tomorrow, talk about being in a rush. I calmly closed the webpage, and was about to tidy up when my phone started ringing incessantly. An unknown number. As soon as I answered, I was met with a barrage of accusations. How could you divorce Gabriel? Have you looked in the mirror lately? You're not some young girl anymore. Do you think you'll find someone as good as Gabriel after your divorce? Go apologize to Gabriel right now. He used to dote on you so much. If you just say a few nice words, I'm sure he won't go through with the divorce. I let out a cold laugh. Who is this? There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then the voice became even more shrill and agitated. Who am I? You don't know? I went through the pain of giving birth to you. And now that you've grown up, you don't even recognize your own mother? I retorted, if I remember correctly, we've cut ties. My mother's tone was full of disdain as she replied self-righteously. The law doesn't recognize that. I'm your mother, and I'll always be your mother. And don't think you can threaten me with what happened back then. I've consulted lawyers online, and the statute of limitations has passed. Even if you go to the police, it won't do any good. Millie Berry, Gabriel helped you back then, but who's going to help you now? Either go apologize to Gabriel or come back home obediently. No wonder she'd been quiet for so many years and decided to show up now. She thought that since the statute of limitations had passed, I couldn't hold anything over them anymore. I said, I still have the evidence from back then. But my mother wasn't concerned at all. Certain that I wouldn't dare to do anything. You wouldn't dare release it. You'd be the one disgraced if you did. It was the same tactic as before, and she was still using it now. 10 years ago, I might not have been able to bear the scrutiny of those around me. But now, I can face it with composure. Judging a victim is the problem of those with twisted minds. Why should I care about the opinions of people who aren't right in the head? I calmly said. I had almost forgotten about this, but thanks for reminding me. I'll send a copy of the evidence to their workplace right away. He's close to retirement, isn't he? We'll see who ends up disgraced then. My mother froze, her voice becoming sharp and piercing. You really dare to bring out the evidence? Aren't you afraid of being drowned by people's spit? I chuckled. We're not living in the dark ages anymore. No matter how angry or abusive my mother became, I didn't engage any further. Thanks to my mother's reminder. When the evidence of Juliana being the mistress was sent out, there was also an additional piece of evidence against my stepfather's illegal activities. Although I had promised Gabriel not to sue her again, it didn't mean I would let her off the hook. Whether it was her interfering in my marriage as the other woman, or deliberately trying to run me over with her car, neither would be forgiven so easily. The next day, both Juliana's university and the wedding guests of her and Gabriel received the evidence I had meticulously prepared. Somehow, someone who had a grudge against Juliana deliberately projected the evidence onto the big screen at the wedding venue. When it was supposed to show their sweet and happy photos, the screen instead displayed evidence of Juliana's attempted hit-and-run and her affair. The venue erupted in chaos, with murmurs rising from all corners. An acquaintance from my company even gave me a live update of the scene. Juliana, in a frenzy, tried to snatch the guests' mobile phones, screaming with a contorted face. Turn it off! It's all fake, fake. It's Millie Berry framing me. She's jealous that I'm marrying Gabriel. Gabriel's face darkened as he gripped Juliana's arm tightly, trying to silence her. But Juliana was beyond reason. The wedding she had so eagerly anticipated had turned into a farce, and she was on the verge of an emotional breakdown. Ah! Millie Berry, you witch! You evil woman! Why couldn't I have run you over back then? The wedding was forcibly terminated midway. But the repercussions for Juliana were just beginning. Juliana's family, known for their preference for male children, immediately disowned her at the venue, stating they had no such shameless, disgraceful daughter. As for her university, upon learning of Juliana's actions, they immediately expelled her. Juliana had managed to secure an internship at Gabriel's company, and was in her final year at a respectable university. She had already received her degree certificate, with a bright future ahead. But now, she was forced to withdraw from her studies. Not only had she wasted 4 years, but her CV now only showed A-levels as her highest qualification. In short, everything was ruined. Of course, Juliana wasn't going to give up easily. She deliberately waited outside the apartment complex, intending to get revenge on me. As soon as she saw me, she rushed towards me in a rage, her face filled with deep resentment and malice. Millie Berry, you witch! I hope you rot in hell, she screamed. You've ruined my entire life, and I won't let you get away with it. With that, she lunged at me, trying to attack me without any restraint. Realizing the danger, I quickly dodged to the side while pulling out my phone to start recording. Juliana glared at me venomously as I moved away, clearly not ready to give up. Like a mad bull, she charged at me again, aiming her belly straight at me. I instantly understood her intention. She wanted to cause a miscarriage and blame me for it. If I hadn't dodged quickly during our first close encounter, she might have actually succeeded in framing me. But now, trying to ram into me again, and then claim I caused her to miscarry was a bit far-fetched. However, Juliana had completely lost her reason to anger, her mind consumed with thoughts of revenge and framing me. I continued recording with my phone while swiftly moving out of the way. But because Juliana was charging so fast, she lost her balance when she met no resistance and fell hard onto the ground. There was a sharp, loud thud as she hit the pavement. The security guards at the apartment entrance had just come out in time to witness the scene, and they were all stunned. Juliana looked at me with hateful eyes, wailing in pain. "Millie Berry, you wretched woman, why did you dodge?" I was momentarily speechless. Did she expect me to just stand there and let her crash into me? No one would be that stupid. I shook my head and started to walk away. But Juliana, still lying on the ground, kept shouting relentlessly. "Millie Berry, come back here. You can't leave. You made me fall, you have to pay for this." I quickened my pace, afraid of getting caught up in Juliana's attempt to frame me. This time, despite hitting the ground, Juliana didn't miscarry. But not long after being taken to the hospital, she lost the baby due to her own reckless behavior. Frustrated that her attempt to frame me had failed, Juliana threw a massive tantrum in her hospital room, hurling things around to vent her anger. In the process, she accidentally stepped on something she'd thrown on the floor and slipped. In the end, she got what she'd wished for. She really did miscarry. But this time, she couldn't blame anyone else or try to frame anyone for it. As for my stepfather, 10 years later, he finally faced the consequences he deserved. Once a respected elder, he's now known as a perverted old man, pointed at and whispered about whenever he goes out in public. That's the old pervert, the beast who could lay hands on his own daughter. Still hasn't changed his ways at his age. What are you looking at, you old creep? Look again and I'll knock you out. Now he's been fired from his job, and with all the neighborhood gossip, he barely dares to leave the house, spending his days cooped up inside. My mom has been caught up in the scandal too, with people saying that just as there are wicked stepdads, there are wicked stepmoms who don't deserve to be called mothers. What was once a somewhat harmonious family has now completely fallen apart. They blame and resent each other, sometimes even resorting to physical fights in the worst moments. One blames the other for not raising their daughter properly, while the other accuses them of not controlling their urges. They both think it's the other's fault. My stepsister, feeling ashamed of them, has cut off all contact and wants nothing more to do with them. The house is in chaos. But they're both getting on in years now and neither wants a divorce. Instead, they torment each other daily, constantly arguing and hurling insults. A month later, Gabriel, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, appeared at my doorstep. He looked noticeably haggard, his once impeccably tailored suit now creased and disheveled. He stared at me, hesitating, before finally letting out a hoarse, bitter laugh. "Millie, I don't have much time left. Would you forgive me?" The car accident had ultimately left Gabriel with irreparable damage. At the time, Gabriel had been preoccupied with dealing with Juliana's situation, only to discover during a subsequent comprehensive checkup that he had severe internal bleeding and organ damage. I scoffed, throwing his own words back at him. Wasn't Juliana just acting on impulse? Perhaps there was a mistake in the diagnosis. Gabriel was taken aback for a few seconds, his eyes suddenly reddening as he spoke in a tone that was almost pleading, with a hint of humble ingratiation. "When the accident happened, my first thought was that I didn't want anything to happen to you. I saved you just because of you, it had nothing to do with Juliana. Millie, couldn't you spend some time with me, considering I'm dying? Just a little time, that's all I need." Under Gabriel's hopeful gaze, I coldly shook my head. "You can ask Juliana to keep you company. Though one shouldn't speak ill of the dead, I simply couldn't tolerate this. The hurt I'd suffered wouldn't disappear with his death. Besides, I wasn't responsible for Gabriel's critical condition. It was his own doing, his involvement with Juliana that led to the current situation." Gabriel forced a smile that looked worse than crying. "So, Millie, you won't forgive me, will you?" I retorted, "What do you think?" Gabriel's body trembled, his face turning pale as he lowered his head and muttered, "I understand. It was foolish of me to hope. After all I've done to hurt you, how could you possibly forgive me?" He stood silently, the light in his eyes completely extinguished. After what seemed like an eternity, he calmly took out a document from his bag and pleaded softly, "This is all I have left. Please don't refuse it." My gaze followed to see it was a property transfer document. Gabriel's company and assets were all clearly listed. During the divorce, I had already received half of the assets. And now Gabriel was offering the remaining half. At that moment, I suddenly felt a sense of tragedy. How did 10 years of love end up like this? After a long silence, I finally let out a sigh. Good luck to you. This blessing wasn't for the Gabriel standing before me now, but for the 10 years of love we once shared. Gabriel was taken aback, then realized what I meant. His voice choked as he said, "Thank you." In the setting sun, I watched his figure gradually disappear into the distance. Knowing this would be the last time I'd ever see him,